I'm very excited to have Lara Thomas with me today. Lara is a soul alignment coach. She is an author. She's the founder of Inspired Soul Sessions. She has a background in psychology, neuroscience, spirituality, energy work. And Lara really guides people to release limiting patterns, align with their truth, step into their fullest potential. And she's also manifested and done some incredible work this year. She's an author of a children's book on values. She's the creator of some wisdom card decks for both kids and adults. And at the heart of all of it, she does it with a simple belief that when we awaken to who we truly are, we not only transform our own lives, but that ripple of love and light and purpose out into the world. So, Lara, thank you so much for being here. And just delighted to have this conversation with you.
Oh, such a pleasure, Stacey. Thanks for asking me to join you.
So I want to start, Lara, you have a science background, really, right? Like studying psychology. And I would just love for you to share a little bit about your transition into the intuitive world, into the spiritual realm.
Yeah, I think my journey was so beautifully designed by the divine, because I always considered myself this very logical person. And although I always had faith and I always believed there was a higher power, I was very wary of the whole intuitive world. I think it was also just the background that I grew up in, right? Very religious and sort of, they were wary of it. So I think that just, transferred really. And what happened was, as I was sort of learning about psychology and working with voices and coaching voices, I realized that I was picking up on more than just what I should know in terms of people's voices. So it was this, what's going on here? And it was like my brain was seeing images of what was happening in their voices or what was happening in their lives. And I just thought I was like an in tune teacher for a long time. Like I just thought that was being a good teacher.
Yeah,
And
because you were a professional singer,
yes, yeah,
right?
yeah,
And so training and working with people on vocals
yes,
and doing that in schools and
yeah.
yeah.
So it was cool because I think on my own personal journey when I was working with my own confidence and just my own energies on stage, it led me down this path of curiosity of how do I overcome myself and how do I expand what's possible for me. And that actually led me to just reading a lot of different spiritual books and kind of starting to understand energetics. I still hadn't dived into intuitive stuff, yet, but started realizing like I could shift my own energy before I went onto stage, and that would shift how people responded to me. So I kind of played with it, if you want to call it that, and experimented with it, and then had this beautiful experience of being able to do it for myself, but then teach it to people and see it transforming them at the same time. And so it just sparked so much curiosity in me. I was like, there's this whole world. And that actually led me to studying psychology. So when I left school, I studied music, went into singing and performing, but then in wanting to help them with their fears and all of that, I was like, I feel like I need more information. But because I'd been on this sort of awareness of myself and my energies, the two were very parallel. So as I was learning about psychology, I was like, that's so interesting. They call it this, but in the energetic world, we call it that. And they're really the same thing, just looking at it from a biological or an energetic perspective. And I think that that's where my mind really just like swung wide open to, we're really all talking the same language with different words, right? And I think the more I surrendered to, okay, let's explore, let's discover what this is, the more I realized there was more to this than I had originally thought. But what was very cool is my therapist at the time had suggested that I go to this animal communication course. And I had a dog at the time who was just, we had this connection and I knew it was special and unlike anything else. And so I thought, cool, I didn't really get to read into it. I was busy performing that week and lecturing during the day, so I didn't have time to check it out, but I trusted her. And so I went. And little did I know that the communication that she was talking about was very much on the level of frequency and on the level of intuitive connection. I thought it was more like Caesar Milan, like dog training, that kind of communication.
Okay.
So I had no idea. And it was cool. And I'm so grateful that the universe did it that way, because I went with an open mind.
Or would you think you would have gone if you would have realized it was
No,
the other?
no,
Yeah.
no, I absolutely not.
Yeah.
If I had known what it was going to open up for me, I know that based on where my mind was at that point, I would have been like, no, this is too woo
So
woo.
you thought you were going into like how to train your
Yes.
dog
Yeah.
and like, yeah, tricks
Yeah.
and those types of things, but you walk in and it's more like how do you communicate with
Yes.
animals?
And not
Yeah.
just communicate like what tone you use or how you talk to them, which is what I thought
Yeah.
it was. It was
Yeah.
communicating telepathically. It was communicating intuitively. And I was like, okay. And I mean, she knew what she was doing, and everything she was saying made sense. So I just kind of, as she was saying, okay, now visualize this and close your eyes. And we did these exercises where, we partnered up with someone and we had to have a picture of their animal and close our eyes. And after a meditation, just answer with whatever came up first. And so I did it. I thought, this is, it's fun. Why not? And it was this cool, slow realization, like as we were reading the answers to our partner, the lady that I was with was crying, and I was kind of like, do I carry on? Like, what's going on here? Like, it looks like she's sad, but not entirely. And it turned out that her dog had passed away several years ago. And so I had been communicating with a dead dog. I mean, this sounds really bizarre, but like in the moment, I was just answering questions on what's your favorite toy and who's your favorite person. So it felt so innocent and just, and what was powerful, I think, is one of the questions was, who's your dog's favorite person to be with now? And so again, innocently, I was like, oh, your dog's showing me that he loves being with your mom and sitting on your mom's lap. And that's when she started crying. And she's like, oh my gosh, she said, my mom passed away 6 months ago from breast cancer. And I always wondered if they would find each other. And I had no idea the power of, that moment, because I didn't know. And it was just so beautiful. It was like this witnessing of something that wasn't me, right? This is not Lara's knowledge. And so it was deeply moving. I was stunned because I just didn't really understand what was going on.
Mm-hmm.
And as the weekend progressed, we communicated with horses and guinea pigs. And I mean, she brought in like a zoo, basically. But it was so cool because I could tell like what the color was of the guinea pig's room and who his favorite person was, and the fact that he wanted more time on the grass and less time with the dogs. All these random things and horses that I knew nothing about. I wasn't a horse person, but I was able to explain, no, this horse doesn't want to do dressage. He likes jumping and he wants to run, and he's changed trainers and he's so much happier with who he's got now because he's more confident in the jumps. And by the end of the weekend, I was just completely befuddled. I was confused.
Mm-hmm.
It was like, what just happened? And honestly, I can remember getting in my car on the way home and being like, I don't know what this means for my life. It's a cool party trick, but I really don't think I'm ever going to use this. Like, I'm a singer. I'm a voice coach.
Right.
I'm not the kind of person who's going to walk up to people and say, hey, did you know your dog is really frustrated with that? That wasn't me. And so I had no idea what was going to unfold. And I think why it was so magnificent in how it unfolded is, like you asked, would I have gone? No. Well, let me rephrase that. If I knew that it ended there,
Right.
possibly. If I knew that
You
I
were going
was,
to get a party
yeah,
trick and have a good
yeah,
weekend.
yeah,
And
connect with some animals,
maybe.
like meet some great people. Yeah, maybe
Yeah.
I would have done that. But little did I know what was coming. And I think I've told you the story, but that following week, all my students who were in second year at college, they were on a study break, and I'd agreed to come in and see two of them to work on their voice technique. And got to college, and they came into the room that we practice in, M5. I still remember it. And I had my keyboard on the stage, and so I'm looking down at them in the rows of seats, and I said to them, "Okay, like, what do you want to practice today?" And they said, "Well, let's just do some warm-ups, and then I think we can do some Lutkins," which were some technical songs. So I was like, okay. And while I'm just playing their warm-up sequence, I've felt this presence trying to get my attention. And because I'd been in a whole weekend of listening and learning how to listen, which is really what intuition is, it was like I couldn't ignore it. And honestly, in the moment, I was like, I don't know what to do. Is this legal? Can I share this information with my students? I'm not sure.
Right.
So I was like, and this energy would not leave me alone. It was like someone who's just tapping on your shoulder persistently, and realized that it was my one student's father who was coming through. And he was he was an incredible man. Like, I could feel his presence was just this very proud, with loads of integrity, and just he had a presence about him that was incredible. And he was just flowing with memories. And, do you remember this car? And I still remember it was a green car with tan leather seats. And he's like, "Oh, I remember you guys sitting in the back eating your ice creams," and that just being some of my happiest memories. And I'm saying this almost like there was no thinking about it. It was just flowing through me.
Right.
And I'm witnessing my student, and, the tears rolling down his face, but I can just see this almost wonderment, like on his, just like, what is going on? And his dad was pointing at the Lutgen that we were going to do, because it was Lutgen number 18, and he was going 18, 18. And I said, "Lita, why is he showing me 18? And he said, "Oh, that was his birthday, and it was also the day he died." And I was like, oh my gosh, and it flowed for, I'm going to guess, about 40 minutes, like just flowed. And then the lights turned off in the room. So he was clearly quite dramatic, because that doesn't happen every time. But I was on the stage. There was no one coming in the door, and you had to come inside the room to turn the lights off. And at that point, the student next to Lita was like, "Oh my goodness, okay, I'm done." so,
I'm out.
she was like, "I don't know what's going on here, but I'm tapping out." So I was like, okay, I think let's have a coffee break and just absorb whatever just happened here. And I was in shock. Honestly, I was just like, what just happened? And he was in shock. And I think we all had that look on our faces. And when we came back to the room, he said, "Lara, I have to tell you this, because I know you didn't know this. But before you got to college today, I was sitting in the prefab across the way, and I was crying because I've been missing my dad so much." And he said, "I just said to my dad, 'Dad, if you love me at all, you need to show me you're still around.'" Yeah, it gets me every time, because I couldn't have known that.
Yeah.
But it was the most beautiful thing. And I have to say, like, Lita is still just someone I think of with so much love. Is such a special human. So I'm really grateful I could be that for him that day.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that was the beginning of a very quick moving shift in my life. I had no idea that that was coming, and then how it was going to just honestly bolt from
Right.
there on. Um, and looking back, I can see all the preparation work, the years of intuitively, reading people's vocal energies and what was going on in their body. And I used to read people on the first day of college and say, like, I can see this is going to be your greatest challenge, and this is going to be, what you need to work on. And I thought that was being a teacher. And I often say
Right.
to people, I think so many of us are intuitive, but we've only ever been us. And so when we hear someone else talking, we're like, that sounds different to me. And so we then underplay what our gift looks like. Right.
Well, and that's why I wanted to talk to you today, Laura. And I
Yeah.
want to pick this story up,
Yeah.
right? And where that's taken you. But, I believe we're all intuitive.
Totally.
We all have this ability,
Yeah.
and we have different capacity, right? To
Yes.
lean into it.
Yes.
And it's, you've obviously got a very highly developed intuition, and you've got some gifts in that way that you've been able to use to serve people. And what I would love to hear you share is, we've downplayed our intuition. We've been told not to trust it.
Yes.
So I would love for you to share, how can somebody, if they want to, develop that ability, that guidance, right, in their own lives. And
Mm-hmm.
so let's speak about that for a little bit here, and then I want to pick up what happened in your life,
Yes. Yeah.
after this.
I love this question because you're absolutely right. It is available to all of us. And I say, just like everybody could learn to swim, you will have people who are more, natural at it, perhaps, or who with training can access it in a different way. But we all have access to it because it really is frequency. And it is the art of learning to listen.
Mm,
And so for me, I think that was what was so powerful about the animals and the way that she structured that weekend, was she just taught us for that time, in that moment, to quieten the mind and listen. And I realized that that's why I didn't discover it until then, because I think my mind is usually very busy and noisy, as I think a lot of us
right.
are. And so I just hadn't created that quiet space to truly listen. And so for me, I think the most important step for anybody wanting to access this is to create quiet space. And then create moments where you're asking a question, you're posing a question, and then you're listening for the answer. Because we're not going to get the answers if we're not listening. And it's not because you don't have a gift, and it's not because you don't have intuition. If you are just in your normal, distracted, everyday life where your eyes are looking outwards, I often say, that's the hindrance, is that your eyes are looking outwards, but you need to almost shut that to go within
Yeah.
when you're first trying to
Love
develop
that.
this. So quiet space, listening. And I often encourage people to just get a pen and paper and allow themselves to write what comes without thinking. So our conscious mind, our logical reasoning, will analyze and then put together in a neat bundle. And so what you find the difference is with intuition and your mind is intuition is instantaneous. There is no processing time mentally that goes on. And that was one of the things she taught us. She said, if you start analyzing, oh, this doesn't make sense that a dog would eat that, or she said, then you're in logic.
Yeah.
Write what comes. And so the step involved there is trust. It's just give yourself permission to write it down. And I think most of us are so afraid of making a mistake or being wrong that we hesitate, and so we interrupt that process. Right? So
Yeah.
yeah, it is huge. It's listening and allowing and saying, I recognize that this is the process of me eventually becoming a channel, like it flows through me, not from me. And the more you do it, the easier it is to trust, right? Because there's more and more evidence built up that actually this works. So it does get easier with time to trust it. But I often
Yeah.
say to people, just ask for a simple message each day. And often the wisdom that comes through you, you're like, whoa, that's so what I needed to hear. And it sounds a lot like you because it's going to come through your mind, your center. And that's why it's hard to differentiate initially, because the flow is the same, but the instantaneous nature is different. Sometimes when you've been doing it for a while, you notice the language is different. The words that you would use are different, and the energy is different, for sure. There is a flow that's quick. Yeah.
So what I heard you say is creating the quiet space,
Yes.
right? So turning off the eyes, like the willingness to go in,
Yeah.
and asking the questions. Start with, simple questions, and then the listening and the trusting.
Yes.
So listening, but then trusting
Yes.
what you're hearing, and those pieces put together, right? It's a formula for success to really hear from your intuition.
Absolutely.
Talk about, Lara, and this is why some people use oracle cards, right? Or different tools. So talk about what is an oracle card, and why is it, or can it be, a powerful tool?
Yeah. I love my oracle cards just as a tool, and I'll explain why. I think for people who are too much in their heads in the beginning and they're overanalyzing everything, or perhaps just don't have the practice grounds. And this is something I'm working on in the near future, is doing another intuitive workshop, because it allows people to practice on each other, because we don't have people to practice on, and then we don't build that trust. But so for people who don't have people to practice on, just trusting yourself to pick a card is a great daily affirmation that actually this card was spot on. It's a message from the divine. But because you're choosing it upside down and you don't know what that message is, it's intuitive. And so oracle cards are typically, they are perceived differently, because they're not meant to be a predictor of your future. They're meant to be a message for you in this moment. And so oracle cards are wonderful when you maybe have a blind spot. There's maybe something you're not seeing in your relationships or at work or in your personal growth. And you'll pull this card, and it's got a pre-written message, and it speaks to you. And for me, that was such an important faith builder along my journey. And I'd been using oracle cards long before I realized the downloading ability. And it was a tool I used daily. What do I need to see in myself today? What am I not seeing in this area of my life? What advice could you give me to improve this friendship? And I would get the message, and it would be like, whoa. I can remember the 1 week pulling the same card every day for like 5 days. And I was like, I shuffled that deck well. And
maybe
right?
It's time to listen.
Yes. And so you go, okay.
Yeah. And oftentimes they're affirming. And I think that's how they build the faith.
Totally.
It's like, oh yeah, I knew that, but I hadn't quite built the trust. Right. And so that, like when you say it's a faith builder, right? It helps you to trust that inner voice and that inner guidance.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you do have some oracle cards. So we're going to link to those. So if anybody's interested in those, we'll make sure that we make that available.
Yeah.
So let's pick this up, Lara. So you go to this weekend, you have this experience with your student, and so where did that trajectory lead, and what did that look like?
So within a few weeks, and more bizarre moments, I realized, okay, this is what I'd been looking for. For many years, I knew, and I can remember saying to my husband then, there's something here. I know I don't know what it is yet, but it's there, and I just need to figure out what it is.
Mm,
And I think as this stuff started flowing, I was like, oh, this is what it is. And it, in hindsight, felt like I'd been training in the art without knowing. In even when I was lecturing, I know I was channeling. When I was, reading my students' energies, I was practicing. And so it was this question posed to me, what now? And there had been several physical experiences that I had had to try and get my attention, to try and say, you're not enjoying the shows that you're doing like you think you should. And I didn't, my logical brain didn't want to hear it because I'd worked so hard to get there.
right.
And yet my soul was just like, oh, I don't want to be, these are not filling my soul. And so when this happened, it was like this clicking together of all the puzzle pieces of, oh, this is what my soul is craving. I want to have a real impact that's making a real difference. And I had no idea, Stacey, how this was going to play out. Or,
That's
yeah,
important. That's
like,
important.
it was so new and so like a completely different focus, really.
Yeah.
But it felt so right. And I think with all the practice of trusting myself, it felt like I needed to take that leap of faith. And I remember going to quit the one job, which was, it was a private school that I was teaching at. I started with that. And I was so nervous. I knew I didn't want to disappoint the head of department. It was a tough call for me. But as I left there, I felt this weight off my shoulders. And that first month, I was able to replace my income from teaching with readings, which was honestly bizarre. I mean, we
Yeah.
didn't even have Facebook in those days. Like, it was like, how? I still can't tell you, just the universe. And within 2 months of that, I left my lecturing job, and I'd been there for almost 15 years. So it was a long
Wow.
time, right? It was a long position I'd held.
Yeah.
But I couldn't deny that the 2 days that I used to be at the private school, when I was doing my readings on those 2 days, I felt different when I woke up in the morning. I was excited, right? There wasn't this, oh. And so that energetic was like, yes, I want to show up in this way. I want to help people. This feels important. It feels powerful. And I know you work so much with that, not knowing the how. There is that moment where you realize you don't want to go back. You don't want to shrink back into not knowing, maybe living a good life, but not a great life. You've often
Yeah.
talked about that, sacrificing the good for great. And that, I think, is such an important lesson throughout our lives.
Mm-hmm.
And so it led to me, I started with readings, and in the beginning it was working with people's photographs, and I would do the reading before I saw them. So I would type it up, because I found it almost distracting in the beginning to have them in front of me, because the human part of me wanted to connect with them. And then I realized, okay, I've been doing this for long enough now. Like, I trust it, and I allowed more flow.
What was the response, Lara? So you have a husband, you have family, you have friends, you have a community, professional community around you. Like, was this a secret that you weren't telling very many people? Were you broadcasting it? Like, how did you handle
Good
I'm gonna say the
question.
criticism, the judgment,
Yeah.
right? What did that look
Oh,
like?
honestly, I was terrified.
Yeah.
And I remember after that Tuesday with Lita going home and crying with my husband and being like, what does this mean? And, because in my mind, I thought my parents might disown me. This was, connecting with people who've passed away was considered like not right. So I can say I played my cards super close to my heart, because I didn't even know how I felt about it, let alone
Right.
anyone else. Um, so luckily my husband was super supportive, and he was like, babe, I really believe if you have this gift, you're meant to serve with it, right? It's there for a
Mm,
reason. And I'm so grateful that he had those words at that time, because I needed that. But I think with my community, it wasn't something I discussed with them. I felt like the two worlds were just so vastly different. So I didn't broadcast it at all. But my therapist soon became my spiritual mentor. And so she guided me. And I think I'm so grateful for that, because, she connected me with other people in the world of spirituality who were okay with it. So I could build
right.
a community of understanding, which I think is so important for growth, is
Yeah.
surrounding yourself with people who you can have those conversations with. I think as my work has evolved and it's become like this conglomerate of helping people, I think my dad has packaged it as you help people. And he said to me the one day, he said, Lara, I can't say I understand fully what you do, but I know that you are light in this family, and so I trust that. And
Aw.
yeah, it makes me emotional,
Yeah.
but yeah, it wasn't easy, I think. But you have
And
to choose
thank
yourself.
you. Yeah, thank you for sharing that,
Mm-hmm.
because, I know there's lots of people listening that have dreams, have passions, have
Yeah.
maybe an unconventional,
Yes.
but there's, right, the fear of what will people think, and
Totally.
what if I am disowned, or what does that look like? That can really hold us back. And
Sure.
so it's not always easy, and people might not understand,
True.
but what's at risk if you don't follow that?
I think what helped me with that was, if this is fundamentally part of why I'm here, like if this is how I'm meant to serve, then the people who are not in alignment with that are not my people, truly, because
Mm,
it's a part of me. And, you've heard the story. I didn't even feel like my human self chose this journey, right? This is not what my logical brain would have chosen for me. And I knew that. So it was like, you know
right.
what? This isn't even about what my brain thinks would be easier. Your truth is your truth. And it's sometimes inconvenient, but
Yeah.
right. I often see that with people is our deeper purpose is not going to just be convenient. It requires decisions.
So you and your family moved from South Africa to the Calgary area. And when you moved, did you know that you were going to continue on this path?
So luckily, I'd had enough time with it in South Africa to know, like, yeah, this is what I'm doing. And I felt like at the time that we moved, I was very well aware of spirit saying, like, this is going to be a test in your faith, and you're ready for it.
Mm,
So let's go. So I was
okay.
like, okay, let's go. And I just honestly, in the beginning, again, like we had no contacts here. I have no idea how I'm going to work or how I'm going to have clients, and I would often just be like praying and just being like, if this is how I serve, then help me to serve. And it was amazing how, it would be a walk to the park with my daughter, who was still little at the time, and I'd meet someone and then they'd refer someone. And, it happened slowly, but actually that was as much as I could probably handle, because we had my daughter and then soon after that fell pregnant with my son. So it was good.
Mm,
It's grown, and it's kind of miraculous, I think, really. But I think that, when we think of the energy of being true to yourself, I trust that so implicitly, that when you're doing what you're meant to be doing, it does happen.
it has grown, and
Yeah.
you had a desire to help more people and serve in a bigger way. Tell us about your business today and what that looks like.
Yeah. So at the moment, I have like different elements to my business. So the one element is obviously still doing readings, still doing soul sessions with people and energy work. And I'm doing group coaching as well. And that's where I'm calling myself the soul alignment coach, because I feel like I'm bringing those spiritual elements together and teaching people sort of a very full-rounded, holistic approach to their lives and connecting with what their truth is underneath the human ego, the things that get in the way and our fears. That was 100% also born out of just noticing that so many of the messages that were coming through me had a lot of the same core lessons. And I was like, can't we just get all of these 10 people into the room at the same time? And I can share this lesson with you all at once. And then witnessing what you're doing and seeing the power of everybody who's in that community and feeling like you get to share in their growth and experience their pain with them, but feel not alone in your journey. I just realized that's such a gift for all of us human beings to feel a part of something and to feel part of a community.
When you say the core messages were similar, so what's one of like consistent messages that you feel like, hey, humans, like let's wake up to this idea, like give it to us straight.
That the truth is you are love. And the truth is you are light. And underneath all of the noise and all of the doubt and the fears and the complexities that come about because of our perceptions and the limitations of those perceptions, underneath that, when we strip it all away, there is this magnificent sense of connectedness and oneness to one another and to the greater energy of love. And when we really connect with that and remember that in ourselves, it's like a breaking open and setting yourself free to just be everything you truly are. And so liberating from the labels that we give ourselves and the conditioning that teaches us, and realizing you're so much bigger than those labels. They really are just constructs. You are not those constructs. And I think when we live in that, the more we tune into that love, the more freedom we find in the way we live.
Amen. Yeah, that's what it boils down to at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And I've got goosebumps. And you can just feel the truth in that. And why the work that you're doing is so important. And I believe the work that I get to do in this world is so important is because it is hard to remember that.
Yes.
When we're raising kids and we're running businesses and we're, on the social media, and the messaging is not that.
I want to share something here because I was so guilty of it, is that as I, realized my intuitive ability, you also then can start to expect that, well, I know this stuff, I should be able to do this for myself. Right? I'm doing it for everybody else. I can read everybody else's life and give them guidance and love and support, and that I didn't create permission for myself to lean on someone else. And so giving myself permission to lean on you and say, it's okay to notice that as a human being, we all need someone that can just hold that space for us. Yeah. Because it's not about the knowledge. Like you said, it's the reminders of what we ultimately on the deepest level know, but need the reminders because there is just so much external noise, right?
Yeah.
So it's powerful. And I think so important that especially those of us that are givers in whatever we do, we need it the most.
I think that's so great that you shared that, Lara. And I always say never hire a coach that doesn't have a coach, right?
Totally agreed.
It is so much easier to see for other people.
True.
Because we're not in their stuff, right? And we call them blind spots for a reason. We all have them.
Yep.
And we're not meant to do it on our own. And so just as you're listening to this, I just encourage you to consider that. Where am I doing life on my own? Where do I feel like it's a weakness to ask for help or to admit that I don't have it all figured out, and to put those support structures in place? I love that.
And one of the things I say to my clients about that is I say, what if it's divine design that you have a blind spot?
Yeah.
so that we can build community and realize what it feels
Ooh.
like to be loved in that vulnerability. That if,
Mm.
if our highest learning on this earth is unconditional love, then we have to be able to receive it too, right? And being vulnerable and saying, I'm too close to this. I need an outside perspective is just this magnificent experience of that love that, yeah, I can be
Mm.
held to.
Mm.
Yeah.
What a great perspective.
Yeah.
And I know you talk to a lot of people. I talk to a lot of people, and people are hungry for community
Totally.
and hungry for connection. And so,
Yes.
yeah, what if that, yeah, struggle is the bridge to
Yes.
find community and connection.
Exactly.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
Laura, if people want to hear more about doing a soul session, your retreats, your programs, your
Yes.
oracle cards, you've got a children's book.
Yes.
Where's the best place for them to find you?
So on my website, it's inspiredsoulsessions.com. It's all there.
And so people can find you and what that looks like. If you had
Amazing.
one final message, Lara, for our listeners today, what would that be?
Trust that you are here for a reason, and that the things that are nagging you, that little voice that's saying, I feel like there's more, listen to it. It knows something. And lean in and just invite yourself to say, maybe there really is. Let that be the love that you show yourself.
Mm. Amazing. I am so glad that you listened
Yes.
and you were brave enough to say yes to that. And it's just such a pleasure and a privilege to know you, Lara,
Oh,
and
so
see your
mutual.
work in the world.
Oh, it's so
Yeah.
mutual. Thank you, Stacey, for everything you're doing and for all the light you're bringing to thousands of lives too.
Amazing.